We use locks every day because they make us feel safe. We use locks to secure our most valuable things, our tools, our homes, and sometimes our loved ones. But recently, I've been binge watching this guy's videos where he makes locks look hilariously useless. So I set out to learn lockpicking to see if locks were really that easy to get past and to see if my valuables were really safe. Also, you never know when a crazy lady will break into your house, change all of your locks, and steal all of your keys. I really have to make better decisions in my dating life. Most locks we're familiar with are pin and tumble locks. Inside the case of a lock, there is a cylindrical object known as the plug. You'll also find springs and pins. The top set of pins are called driver pins and the bottom are called key pins. When you stick the right key in, the pins meet at the shear line and the plug can now turn. Lock picking works by taking advantage of manufacturing tolerances in the shaft where the pins rest. A tension wrench is used to apply just the right amount of pressure, while a pick is used to push the pins up so that the driver pins get stuck above the shear line and the key pins stop below the shear line. So I got started with one of those cheap kits off of Amazon that came with one of these clear locks, and after taking 30 minutes of poking around in the hole not knowing what I was doing, I finally hit the right spot and got it open. After that, I was opening the lock in only a few seconds, even though I had no idea what I was really doing. While these clear locks are great for seeing how a lock functions, apparently they aren't great practice locks.
Kobe.
After throwing on my all-white New Balances and favorite dad shorts, I made a quick trip to the hardware store to get a few locks to practice with. Using the same technique as before, and the same technique I use in my dating life, I began to blindly poke around the hole, hoping to hit the right spot. Surprisingly, this was successful. It only took me minutes to unlock each lock. I learned how to access easy mode by using a technique called raking. Taking a wavy pick like this and shoving it in and out the keyway, I could open locks with no skill. This lock, easy. This lock, easy. This lock, easy. So I began to wonder why lockpicking was rarely used in burglaries if all you needed was the same skill set as a lonely guy with a bottle of lotion and access to the internet. It's probably because
There's usually an easier way. I forgot to hit record.
some locks are really easy to pick, especially the ones that say Master Lock on them. But some lock manufacturers make locks that can't be opened by a crackhead with the empty Coke can. One way a lock is made more pick resistant is by having a difficult keyway, making moving the tools hard to maneuver in the lock. Another is by having difficult biting where the pins will set at varying heights. Basically, it's really difficult to set the pins in the back without oversetting the pins in front of them. And then there's security pins. Instead of these pins being smooth, these security pins come in all different shapes. These security pins make the lock immune to raking, and picking the lock is almost impossible unless you're a seasoned lock picker or a wizard like the lock picking lawyer. This behemoth of a lock that was clearly overcompensating for something had 5 of these security pins in them. But I wasn't afraid. I only feared 2 things: God and getting stuck in conversations with strangers at the grocery store. So I began to attempt to pick this lock, only to realize my hubris would be my downfall. But I was going to improve my lock picking skills and open this lock. And after hours and hours and hours of practicing, I eventually broke the key off in the keyway, turning this lock into a paperweight.
Kobe.
Unfortunately, I really wanted to improve my skill and really understand lockpicking. It seemed like a really useful skill. We always hear a story where a mother locks her keys in her car on a hot summer day. Sadly, she left something precious in the backseat. She calls a locksmith, but he's 20 minutes away. She tries to break the window, but she's not strong enough. And by the time that the locksmith gets there, it's too late. Her lunch is ruined. If only she knew how to pick locks, she wouldn't have to eat lunch from a vending machine. I needed to learn and perfect single pin picking. With this technique, each pin is precisely picked in a certain order by feel. While it may not be as cool or as fast as some other ways to pick locks, it is the most consistent and reliable way to pick most locks. While I struggled a bit at first to get a feel for single pin picking, I eventually conquered each lock. I could feel which pins need to be set. I could hear every pin being properly set, and I could see that I needed more locks. Luckily, I found a spare doorknob from one of my projects where I finished 93% of the work, then moved on to another project. This was my first door lock. It had some challenging pins. It was really difficult to set the pins in the back without oversetting the ones in the front, making this lock incredibly annoying. But I got a feel for it and was eventually able to easily pick it. It was still a pain.
Kobe.
I now felt good enough to do something that I've always seen in spy movies, which was paracording through a light fixture like in Mission Impossible. But for safety reasons, I decided to try picking locks with a paperclip. I bent one to make a tensioning wrench and another to make a pick. In theory, this makes total sense, but you never know till you try. While this wasn't going as smoothly as using my tools, it was still doable. After picking all of these locks, I was still feeling the defeat of the lock with all of the security pins. So I dug it out the trash can, and with the skills and precision of a brain surgeon with cerebral palsy, I managed to get the broken key out of the lock. I applied everything I learned so far, using the slightest tension and slowly moving from pin to pin. I could feel the difference between the false clicks of the serration pins from the true sets of the pins. The spool pins were no longer tricking me into believing I falsely set pins. And maybe I've actually learned how to pick locks. To prove this wasn't just a fluke, I picked it again. And again. And again. After picking all these locks, I now felt like I maxed out all the points in my lockpicking skill tree. Hopefully it's a skill I'll never have to use. And hopefully I'll do better on who I date. Then again, here for a good time, not a long time.